Okay, so the English handout is the last page, the summary. Let me give you a little bit of an overview of what we're going to be doing, and then we'll go through the handout. So I'm going to throw out different questions that we're going to be addressing this class and the next few classes, and how it's going to put everything we learned until now. We'll finish up everything we learned until now through these next few classes. The last part of this whole mimer, what I took out of it and what I'm going to share, is the concept of bashert versus a person having to do something. We spoke about it in a lot of different ways, but here we're going to bring out the idea of bracha, tefillah, how all these things play out. Let me throw out a few questions. The word bashert is not only in Bonai, it's in Chaye and Zoyne, it's in everything. Right? We say we say that the person's parnasa is bashert, we say a house is bashert, a lot of different things we use the word bashert. Bashert in English is destiny. Bashert in Hebrew is ktsuvin. It's ktsuvin like Rosh Hashanah, which means to say the Eibishter set aside a certain portion, something for every individual. Every individual has something specific that the Eibishter has set aside for him, her. So the question is, if the Eibishter set it aside, will it automatically happen? How does that work? Will it automatically happen and we find that not? Suddenly we find a whole sprach, a whole language of make a Keili. I have to do something to make it happen. So we're going back into the make it happen and the Eibishter, right? It's just playing out in life. On one hand, we're saying it's bashert. If you wish, it's Shem Havaya and Shem Alakim, if you were there from the beginning. Same concept. It's playing out in life. So on one hand, we're saying bashert. The Eibishter set it aside, it's going to happen, it's there. And on the other hand, we use a language that it won't necessarily happen, and I have to do something to make it happen. So it's a balance that needs to be understood. And it's a very personal question that we ask many times when we come across that challenge. Second area that we're going to be reflecting on, 3 points, right? The first question is just a challenge, personal challenge. Second area is the koyach havetzadik in brachas. What is the koyach havetzadik? Let's let's describe, where does the tzaddik intercede on our behalf? How does it work? And the third area is tefillah. There's bracha and there's tefillah. A person on their own can somehow change the bashert, change what should happen, or maybe make what should happen. So we have to discuss the challenge, bracha, and tefillah, and through that, we're going to summarize everything that we learned until now, because this is like the avoida part. This is like how everything we learned applies in Shem Havaya and Shem Alakim in life is bashert and Keili. It's the same concept. So let's start off with, that's the introduction. So let me start off with 2 questions on bracha and on tefillah. Anybody give me an example of the first bracha of a tzaddik that we find in Torah? Yitzchak and the Eibishter benched Avram too. Sarah was Akara. Hashem pokad a Sarah, right? It was a bracha. What kind of bracha was that? Al pi teva, was there a possibility to have children? No. Akara. So there was 0 chance al pi teva, Akara. Hashem pokad, he changed teva, and he made her bas kuf kivas chof. Rashi says, right? So what kind of example of a bracha is that? That's a bracha where there was no bashert, essentially, to her. She didn't have anything in her possession yet. The Eibishter was shoiver darchei teva. Can you give me another example of a bracha that we find in Chumash Bereshis? Another example of brachas? What other brachas do we have? We have the Bracha of the Shvatim, Yaakov and Esav. Yaakov and Esav was Mirma, so that's also trickery, which means to say it's a Chidush. It wasn't there and I had to take it. There is Chassidus discusses a little segment in Vayichi. The Bracha of Yaakov to Menashe and Ephraim. Right? So pay attention to the story. Menashe and Ephraim come to Yaakov. Yaakov has B'koyach to give a bracha, right? Menashe is sitting on one side, and Ephraim is sitting on the other side. Yaakov says, no, change them. Because he has to get a certain bracha. Why? So Yaakov says, because he's Bashert, he has to have that bracha. That's what he's meant to have. 1 second. If he's meant to have that bracha, what do I need you for? How does it work? Pashtus. How does the psukim work? Imagine I have $100 in my pocket. I can give it to whoever I want, right? If I have something in my pocket, I can give it to you. I give it to whoever I want. Now I say, no. This is meant for a specific person. I can't give it to you. Who's tying your hands? Why can't you give it to the other person? Menashe and Ephraim are sitting in front of you. What are you saying? Menashe, he is the one who will become the person who will personify a certain... Malachim are going to come out of him, and Chveis Chacham are going to come out of him. So therefore I have to give the Chacham to the Chacham, so what do I need you for? If the Chacham are going to come out of him, and the Malachim are going to come out of him, and that's why you see that coming out of him already, so what do I need you for? Sada, you didn't see children, because you didn't have any children, right? And you were able to, the Eibishter was able to be Meshana. Rivka couldn't, you were able to be Meshana. Barachas are Meshana. What happened over here? Why by Menashe and Ephraim do we say, no, I have to give Menashe a certain bracha and I have to give Ephraim a certain bracha? They were going to have it anyway. What do I need you for? It was Bashert for Menashe to have a certain destiny to come out of it, and Ephraim to have a certain destiny. Chassidus gives this example as a concept of where even when things that are Bashert, we still need to make them happen. Not because the Eibishter gave a certain Bashert to someone, and that has to be understood. Because 1 second, if the Eibishter gave it, then you're playing a game, you're giving it, but it's stuff to make it happen. That has to be understood. But here's an example where we see that playing out. If you look on your handout, at point 1, that's what I highlighted in point 1. Point 1 is the purpose of the Tzaddik's Bracha. The purpose of the Tzaddik's Bracha, if you ask someone Stamazeh, they're going to probably say it's to be Shoiver Darkei HaTeva. And we're going to discuss today how even the things that are supposed to happen, we need a tzaddik for them. Or we need to intercede to make it happen. They won't just happen. This has to be understood. That's in the area of bracha. That's point number 1. Again, Menashe and Ephraim, we're supposed to have certain brachas coming out of them. Forget Yaakov sitting to the side. To the extent that Yaakov said, I can't do anything but what I see that is meant for you. The word meant is basher. The word meant means it's supposed to, it's going to. If it's going to, what do I need you? Something can get stuck. Even if things are meant, they can get stuck. So we have people that push them and allow the things that are meant that they should actually happen. This has to be understood. That's point number 1. Point number 2, in the area of tefillah, you have the same discussion in the Hishtadlus. It's a question brought down in many Maimarim, and over here also he brings down. I want to ask you a question. Yom Kippur, we have mi yichya mi yomus, right? The Eibishter goes through a whole din v'cheshbon, every single individual. What's going to happen throughout the year? Let me put it over here. So let's say, can I erase this? Yeah. So let's say you're sitting at the end of Yom Kippur, right? And you have Yichya, and you have Chas v'Sholom and Yomus. Now you have Kol Hashana, Kol Yoim. Why am I davening Kol Yoim? I already have Yichya, so I don't have to daven for Yichya. Why am I davening? Oh, for the Yomus. So the Yomus, I want to change it. How does it work? How do you understand? Yom Kippur finished, we davened, we shuffled away, it was all amazing. came to Ne'ilah, right? What's the touch of Ne'ilah in English? Sometimes we don't touch things in English. What's the touch of Ne'ilah? Done deal. It's a done deal. Does Abish change his mind? I mean, you ever go to a done deal and renegotiate? It's called an Indian giving. You don't do that, right? You don't sign a deal and then afterwards say, "Oh, I'm gonna change my mind." So if Abish just said Yichya, it's gonna be Yichya, right? So why am I davening? The passion. How do people understand this? I'm asking. Anybody?
Well, you have all the brachas that you have to just wrote it down.
Oh, so even the Yichya I have to daven for? I have to daven even for the Yichya. So why is it called Ne'ilah? Here we have the same concept playing out. Same concept playing out. That has to be understood.
What's the difference between tefillah and bracha?
Oh, that has to be understood. Both of them are looking to address the same challenge. Things that are shared that don't necessarily happen.
What about?
Bracha can address it, which is a tzaddik, and we as individuals can address it through tefillah. The difference between the two has to be addressed, but most importantly, what does this mean? What does this mean? It's a joke. You know, if you tell me, I'd like to gift you $1 million. Let's just have one tonight. I want you to work for me for a year. It's not a gift, right? If you're telling me you're giving it to me, give it to me. It's not even a postage check. It might not happen. What's the gather of this? What does that mean? The David should not give it. He said he gave it, the Elo. So this is a question that's asked. The Chassidus is asked in many ways. It's asked, it says, Ne'ilah, and it says, B'chol yoyim v'yoyim donim v'zadam. The question is something differently, but the word is done. Every day there's a din. What do you mean there's a din? I thought the din was done. Oh, the din is to make it happen, although it's basher. Again, we're going through the same thing. That has to be understood. Clear? So that's what we're going to be addressing. So in this class, I'm going to be addressing not the shoiver darkei hateva, which is Hashem pogad asara, which is when a person is on the deathbed and you want to change darkei hateva. That we'll get to later. Here we're going to address a preliminary step. Even the things that are meant to happen, they might not happen. What does that mean? How do I make them happen? So why did Abishur say they're going to happen? Is that a joke? What does that really mean? That's what we're going to be addressing. Clear? Good. So in order to understand this, I copied a sikha. I'll say it outside, and then I think this time I'll defer, and I'll also show you a little bit inside, because it might help. So let me first say it outside. In the history, Parnasa today is called Lechem min haaretz. There was a time there was Lechem min hashamayim. There were two times in history actually it was Lechem min hashamayim. Anybody? There was two times in history of the Yidden that we didn't have to work for a living. The Mon and Gan Eden. Where is the work sweating for a living? Where does that come from? It's in the Torah. When was that said? After Chet Eitzadas. History repeated itself. The same Basalegani. History repeated itself. Chet Eitzadas, the Gia Kapecha. Chet Egel. We had a little story of the Mon, but then afterwards Eretz Yisrael. You have to actually be Zayreya and Chayrish, and it's a difficult situation where you have to work for a living. But there was a time of Lechem min hashamayim. Lechem min hashamayim is basher. It comes from the Eibishter. It's simply, you don't have to do anything. There's no tefillah, there's no nothing. There's no tefillah and no bracha. It's coming straight to you. Let's take a look at Lechem min hashamayim, and it's going to help us understand Lechem min haaretz. Lechem min hashamayim is supposed to just come straight down. It's raining down. It's matanim al-maila and asati mitar. It's coming straight down al-maila. That tkufa is going to help us understand Lechem min haaretz. The Rebbe Marash actually writes, showed to you in the Sikha, that Parnasa today is like the Mon. We have to understand what that means, but we'll get there. So let me ask 3 questions on the Mon. 3 questions on the whole story of the Mon. We don't pay attention to the story. It's a fascinating story. Let's take the first question. You're all familiar with the Maimer Chazal that the Rishoyim, Tzadikim, and Beinanim all had different ways of collecting the mun, right? You're familiar? What were the differences? Did they get a different amount? Was there a different amount of mun for each individual? No. Was there a different taste for each individual? Kamas Eichas? No. So what was the difference between a Rasha and a Beinani and a Tzadik? How much they jogged? You walk a mile, you walk a half a mile, you walk Pesach. What's the purpose of that? You ever thought about it? What's the purpose of that? Anybody? What's the purpose of the whole walking business? Anybody?
We right in front of the house that was theirs, and then they saw other things, they said, let's go to the better thing.
So why are we making the Rasha walk? What's the point?
It's he himself that
What?
it's he himself, we're not making him.
No, the Eibishter made that the mun should be further away, that he has to walk to get it. Why? What was the purpose behind it? The Pashtus, people learn. It's like some kind of, you don't deserve that it should be on your doorstep, so I'm going to make you walk a little bit for it. I mean, but it doesn't really flow if you think about it. If you want to teach someone a lesson, you don't give him walking is a joke. The walking is not going to teach him anything. You're giving him, the mun was unlimited taste, bligvul, unlimited amount of food, because there was no hagbola. You don't eat too much of it, but whatever you ate, there was no difference between everybody. Everybody had the same amount, same taste. You're spoiling people. You're getting everything you want. So if you want to teach him a lesson, where do you teach a lesson? You teach a lesson by taking away a certain amount. You give him less, give him a less taste. That's how you teach a lesson. By walking a little bit, what kind of lesson are you accomplishing in just having him walk a little bit? What exactly are you accomplishing here? Punkt verkehrt. He's going to still be the spoiled Rasha in the sense of not changing his behavior. You imagine a child doesn't behave. The example that I have is like this. Imagine a father gives a child an unlimited credit card. Okay? I said the word unlimited because it's believable. They had all the tastes, everything they wanted. Okay? Is that a responsible thing to do? No, you spoil a child. It causes a child not to have. So you're going to say, oh, I'm going to teach you responsibility. You're going to go to the post office to pick up the credit card. Now you can be a responsible boy because you walked a mile to pick up the credit card. He's laughing all the way to the post office.
Maybe it's not fitting, but at least he did something correct.
He's walking to the post office, he picks it up, and he does what he wants. How are you teach someone by inyan pnimi, giving him a little bit, and then he goes to more a little bit, and then he earns a little bit more. You're playing a weird game. The word unlimited shows on matana. There are two ways how we interact in life. There's matanas. Imagine I come, I say, I'm going to give you a gift. What a gift, by the way, means I don't look at your behavior to give it to you. The word unlimited usually means gift. I'm not looking at a behavior. Behavior demands a certain amount for a certain person. Right? So I'm saying, no, I'll give you it. But then I need you to do, what's this need? How does it play out in the sense of the gift that the Eibishter is giving in the midbar? It's giving an unlimited amount, but I need you to walk to the post office, to Rasha. Doesn't make it's obviously something's missing over here in the story. What's the point of the walking? On the flip side, the tzaddik had to walk a little bit. It's brought down, had to walk a little bit outside his door. David didn't make a nest that should be on his table. Also, a little bit, everybody had to walk. There's something in this collection process of the man. You're going to get your food, your sustenance. I need you to walk. There's something in the walking to get the food. You walk a lot, you walk a little. I need everybody to walk. Exercise, what happened over here? Teaching, you take away. You make real dargas. You make the Rasha gets only tam Rasha, and he's going to taste like matzah. And the tzaddik is going to taste like steak. You make no. Everybody's going to have every taste. Whatever you want, just walk. What's the walking? What's this idea of walking that the Eibishter embedded within the process of collecting the man that was so integral to the experience of the man? That's question number one. Question number two. Think about the whole story of the man. What was the purpose of the man? What's the purpose of the man? The Yidden were hungry. You're making a supernatural nest of man, a little, I don't know, little thing that the Eibishter sends down, has in it all the time. Just, I have a better idea. What can the Eibishter do? What can the Eibishter do to address the problem of hunger of a human? The Eibishter did it to Moshe Rabbeinu Aboim Yoim when he was on Har Sinai. Just make them not hungry. Make them feel satisfied. You have to make them one that they should eat it. They should have all the time. They should go and collect it and eat it. And every day, so many rules and regulations within this nest, which is an awesome. Just make the Yidden not feel hungry. That's it. Obviously, there's a purpose over here. This question is obviously showing there's something deeper in the whole story of the man. Lechem in Hashemayim wasn't just a food experience. It wasn't just to feed the hungry people. The Shabbos, what is it? What is really that story of the man? Third question. Third question is a close-ticket question. Bichlal, why make such nisim? Ever thought about it a second? What's the hardest pain of an ani? Let me rephrase it this way. What kind of ani experiences the worst hardship in his aniyas? The one who used to be an usher. Right? The one who used to be an usher, now is an ani. It's even more painful because he used to. So what are you doing to the Yidden? You give them 40 years of ashidus muflaga, and then you're throwing them into Eretz Yisrael, where it's you don't have parnasa until you're chaydish, until you're zayreya, you have to work for a living. What's the purpose of this? What's the purpose of having the Yidden experience a time in history where they don't have to? Seemingly, it backfires. It creates spoiling children, which is what happened in the Midbar. They were kvetching the whole 40 years. Because when you give someone in Nissen that are just shoiver darkei hatav, you cause them to have a breakdown. You cause them not to internalize it. And then what's the point of the whole story? In other words, question number 3 is, why even experience an experience of Lamayla Medarkei Hateva in the Midbar? And again, this points to something more significant in the story of the man than just feeding them in some kind of amazing, tricky way. Maybe she can pull a lot of tricks out of his pocket. But he picked Dafka the man, Dafka over here, Dafka before Eretz Yisrael. It was a preparation for Eretz Yisrael. The Lechem min Hashemayim was a preparation for the Lechem min Haaretz. He was teaching us something. Arboim Shana Bamidbar is like Ben Arboim Lebina. There was a certain amount of time the Eibishter had us go through the Midbar. It was a training process. And all of these details within the man are part of that training process. Eating the man, damu vasar kivsarai, eating that was allowing a new recognition to be digested within the Yidden. And the kvetching in the Midbar is like a child walking and falling and growing, which is a consequence of the experience of the man. And the collection process was also part of the experience. The Eibishter needed them to go through that. We're going to see how this all plays out. But the whole experience of Lechem min Hashemayim is a preparation for Lechem min Haaretz. What do we find in the Midbar? So let's see how it's a training. What are the two regulations that the Eibishter put down in the man? Two rules. Number 1, can't collect for the next day. And number 2, can't collect on Shabbos. I don't understand. Why do you make it fall on Shabbos if you can't collect? And why do you have it? Why didn't you just make me collect once a week? Why would I have to collect, and why can't I collect for the next day? Why not? What's the problem? Why is it part of the experience that I have to collect every day, and I can't collect for the next day? What are you trying to somehow give me? What kind of message are you trying to transmit to me through that kind of mental process of me taking today, not take for tomorrow, take today, not take for tomorrow, every day? By the way, it's a very difficult thing. Could you imagine you have to deplete your bank account every day to zero?
No, we never learned to should.
Why is it so difficult to deplete your bank account every day to zero? Because as humans, we feel we're in charge. Naturally so. We have to make it happen. And depleting it means I have nothing the next day, right? The whole experience of the man was to bring the Yidden to a mental, here's how it plays out. A Yid goes out in the morning, says, oh, I'm hungry, I have to eat something. What am I going to do? Oh, there's man, I'm a chaya. What does a Jew do? A Jew usually takes two, puts it away for tomorrow, puts it away for his friends, for his, for a rainy day. That's the teva of a person. You put away, so he takes, he eats, he's happy, and he wants to put away for the next day. I have to provide for myself. That's how we're wired to think. He says, no. Abish is going to provide for me. 1 second. Abish is providing for me. I woke up in the morning, I was hungry. I had to go out and find food. No, but Abish is going to provide for me. How does Abish provide? I have to go out and get the food and eat. What's going to happen? How do I know he's going to give it tomorrow? Maybe it's only today. I don't see any, it's not part of the nature, it's a ness. Maybe the ness is not going to happen tomorrow. He has to go through this every day. There's a kind of cheshbon that he's thinking naturally. That's when a nest happens to you once, you say, oh, it's a miracle. You don't expect a nest the next day. You have to trust that there's going to be something happening the next day. You have to slowly train yourself. So the Eibishter made the Yidden go through it. And the man, because what's the idea of the man? In Chassidus, the man is compared to Torah. The man affected the mindset of the Yidden. The Eibishter by Matan Torah changed the identity of the Yidden. And 40 years in the Midbar, the man changed the consciousness of the Yidden. It helped the Yidden become aware and it invested into their mind a different way of looking. The man eating it actually helped them, was part of the experience. When eating, it's like eating sharaim of a rebbe. I mean, it's an inyan kodesh that you eat and you put part of it becomes part of your system. It changes how you think. Just like we spoke about kashrus changes. Here it's even much more. It's considered like Torah. Man is considered like Torah in the sense of just like when you think something, you have that mindset. So the man affected the Yidden's mindset and allowed them to embed within them that they're not dependent on any rules of nature. This concept of their identity, the Yidden throughout the Midbar, the 40 years, that was the purpose of the man. Leman anasenu hatishma mitzvaysav imloi. The whole purpose of the man was a training experience to somehow give the Yidden a different kind of recognition. A Keili mindset is what the whole purpose of the man was. That the Yidden in the Midbar should look at themselves not as independent, but as connected. And not as a separated entity that was created, but as a flow from creator into them, and they're actually part of a creator, and not they should feel that. That was the whole purpose of the man. Lechem min hashamayim, in other words, Lechem min hashamayim is from the Eibishter, but the Eibishter wanted that the Yidden should go through a time that they should. In other words, the Lechem min hashamayim wasn't just a gift. It was a gift with the purpose of teaching the Yidden that there's a Shemayim. It wasn't just from Shemayim. It was teaching them Shemayim. It was somehow embedding within them. That's why it's brought down in Hishtadlus all the time. The man was the idea of the Munah, right? It was Mefarnes the Munah. That's what it was. It was bringing the Munah into Yediyah. The man was a time of bringing the Amunah of Matan Torah into Yediyah. That's what the man was. Shem Havai into Shem Elokim, whatever words you want to use. That was the concept of the man. This is now going to help us a little bit in the questions that we had in the beginning. story that illustrates this. It's a story that I heard recently. It illustrates this whole concept of Keili. Sometimes it's a little bit subtle. Some stories have it within them ways of clarifying something in a very factual way. So I'll share with you a story that's going to illustrate what. In other words, when you say the mun is looking to change the mindset of Keili, can you somehow describe that? Like, what's the before and after? What do you expect the Yidden to have change in their mind? Like, well, give me an example. So there's a story that I heard that I thought that's apropos. So the story is from Pesach. There was a chassid of the Tzemach Tzedek, and the chassid had many hidurim in Pesach. The story is told that he had two major hidurim. One hidur he had was that he would not use water during Pesach. But he had to have water, so he prepared it before. How did he prepare it? He had a special well for Pesach. Special well for Pesach, that's what he had. The second hidur that he had was that he wouldn't, many people don't eat in other people's houses. And his hidur was he didn't even eat in the Tzemach Tzedek's house. That was his hidur. You don't eat in other people's houses. Tzemach Tzedek's. So he went to the Tzemach Tzedek's house. He can go to his Rebbe's house. Comes to Tzemach Tzedek's house, and Tzemach Tzedek tells him, quickly go home, there's chametz in your well. He said, chametz in your well, chametz in your home, and he saw it in the well. Comes home, sees chametz in the well, Shvatz and Egan, he runs back to the Tzemach Tzedek and tells him, I have two questions. Question number one, what did I do wrong? Why was I, obviously Mamayla, you know, what did I do to be nichshel in chametz b'Pesach? Mamish chametz b'Gomer. And question number two, if you knew about this, why didn't you tell me earlier? Wait till Achshel Pesach, tell me. So Tzedek answered him, and I'm going to say his answer, and then I'd like to understand it. He tells him, the Eibishter wanted to show you, I'm paraphrasing, that a Yid can do many things. A lot of Hidurim. We try in life to cross the T's and dot the dots. We try to do everything we can to secure ourselves. But the Eibishter wanted to show you need Siyata D'Shmaya. And you didn't have it. You didn't have that attitude of relying on the Eibishter. You thought that you can do it all on your own. You don't need it. You already did all the Hidurim in the world to make sure you're not ever going to come across chametz. So the Eibishter gave you this kind of reminder that you need to rely on him. Let me ask you a question. What did he do wrong? Many people have the hidur of the well of only having prepared water. People do that. What's the problem with this chassid? If you think about it, the problem was the second hidur. If you cannot eat in the tzaddik's house, Rebbe's house, that means you're really disconnected. You really are independent. You really think you can make it out on your own. That was his problem. His problem wasn't in substance. His problem was in attitude. The substance of the hidur in the well, there's nothing wrong with that. The attitude behind it, which was demonstrated through his second hidur, which was separating yourself from a tzaddik. I mean, is there that expressed his lack or his overly inflated trust in himself. Keili is attitude. I said this many times, but here you see it. Keili is mostly attitude, not substance. Not so much substance as attitude. Well, and we'll have to go through this to see a little bit more what it is. But this story demonstrates this concept of how a person can do the same thing. But one person does it, that's recognition. That's a recognition that no matter what I do, the same way you have the baruchnis, you have the begashmis. A person goes through parnasa, a person has to do things. You have to make certain, you have to cross the T's and dot the dots. No one is saying you don't have to cross the T's and dot the dots. Baruchnis, begashmis, whatever you have to do, you have to do. The question is the attitude behind it. We'll have to find more examples of attitudes, we'll find. But this is a story that I thought illustrates this nikud of an attitude is something that's in the head. It's in how I see things. It's in my approach. There's a lot of words we use for it. It's not in substance so much. The last thing that Rebbe writes in the Sikha, and then I show it to you on the side, is
It's expressed by substance.
not always. Not always.
Expressed.
Oh, in this case, it was expressed by his Hiddur of not going to the Rebbe. By his Hiddur of not going to the Rebbe, right? But you wouldn't see, while he has the Hiddur of the well, you wouldn't see it. You wouldn't know. Because it's in the head, it's how he looks. A different example that I thought of, two people can be dressed the same way in the army, let's say. They have a certain code in the army. One person feels like a Nebuch, one person doesn't. So it's not the substance as much as the feeling behind it. You can be doing the same thing. One person feels like I'm a loser for doing it. So it's the Keili is really an appreciation. The word, if you ask someone, what's a Keili? Keili is a cup. If you ask a cup, who are you? What's a cup? Are you going to hang up a cup on the wall and say, oh, what a beautiful cup, I'm going to hang it up on the wall? The cup is going to say, I'm not a painting, I'm not substance. I'm here to allow the flow of substance into me. I'm connecting to a substance. That's what a cup says. So Keili essentially means that I'm connected to what's inside of it. I'm not an entity for itself. That's the idea of Keili. That in the end of the Sikha brings out, and I want to show it to you inside. The end of the Sikha that brings out that in Birchas Hamazon today, there's two brachas, Hazanas Ha'olam and then Noida L'cha. Hazanas Ha'olam is actually for Lechem Min HaShamayim. The Chazal bring down that Hazanas Ha'olam is to commemorate the Mon. And the second bracha is to commemorate Lechem Min Ha'aretz when they went there to Israel. So the question is, why do you have to have the Mon in Birchas Hamazon? And it explains, and why the first one? So it explains because that's exactly the point. When we're sitting today, Lechem Min Ha'aretz, we're meant to recognize that the Lechem Min HaShamayim recognition should somehow internalize also to us today within the realm of the Lechem Min Ha'aretz. So the benching, which is the first bracha is Lechem Min HaShamayim, which is then supposed to seep into the Lechem Min Ha'aretz, so into the benching today. Now let me summarize and show this.
The actual thing of the month, isn't there more cannot do a transaction?
Again, yeah, the whole idea of the man was to put bitachon into the Yidden. To internalize bitachon and amun into the Yidden. Through the physical experience. You know what the collection process was? When you're going to collect, the Rebbe writes like this. I want to show it to you inside. When you're going to walk the mile to get the man, does anybody really think that walking that mile makes him earn the man? Like Keili, now he earned it, and now you're sitting at home, you don't get it. Walk a mile, now I deserve it. Did anybody think that walking somehow made them feel like it's theirs, like they own it, like when you work for a job, they don't. It was wholesomely, clearly felt that this is because the Eibishter told me I have to walk and I have to get it, but it's really from the Eibishter. No one had a doubt within their mind, within that jogging process, Yetzer now became mine. Now, because I did something for it, I walked. The Eibishter wanted to show them when you're Chodesh and Zaydeya, it's the same thing. The Gemara says, when a person plants, so a Yid is Maimin B'chai Elam V'Zaydeya. The Eibishter wanted to demonstrate to them, whatever you do, don't look at what you do as the real cause. For what look at it that I told you that's the system you have to play. Look at it as a system that I created that you have to play with that system. I started with the midbar. I wanted to show you that I'm zon mafarnes isako. I give chayas. Think about the behemoths and the ilonis and everything else. They get straight from the Eibishter. The Eibishter wanted us to work. What's the working that we have to do? Why do we have to work for a living? Because the Eibishter wanted us to have an appreciation. An appreciation comes through us doing something. So the system that the Eibishter created was in such a way. That's the concept of the Lechem Min HaShamayim and Lechem Min Ha'aretz. I'm going to show this to you inside. So if you turn to the beginning of the Sikha, and then there's a few letters that I highlighted that the Rebbe brings this in life. There's a letter on page, there's no numbers here. 1, 2, 3, 4, letter on page 5. Okay? Here, this letter of Negea, what it means, Keili in life, and then the first Sikha is also inside. We have a few minutes. Let's do the letter and then the Sikha. Letter on page 5 is in Yiddish, but I'm going to translate it. It's a long letter, but it has a lot of, you'll see this whole concept in a lot of times, letters of the Rebbe, when it comes to certain Inyanim, you'll see the Maimorim, how the Rebbe expresses it within how he addresses a specific problem. So it's volume 6, page 1056, on the top of the page. It says volume 6, page 1056. So here the person asks the Rebbe a question. He wants to, the Rebbe then gave brachas to anybody who lives in Kfar Chabad. So the person was asking the Rebbe that he wants to change and go to a different place because he's going to have better parnasa there. Yeah, so lechem min haaretz. We're dealing with the question of lechem min haaretz, and the Rebbe is going to use everything we learned here to address this person's problem. He has doubts. If the Rebbe said live in Kfar Chabad, you can have brachas, but he sees there's better parnas in other places. So he wants to relocate and go to other places. So the Rebbe is going to address this problem. Look how the Rebbe addresses this. So this is an factual, practical problem. How the Rebbe is taking everything we learned into a real problem. He writes like this. My way of looking at this is, and I hope you can give this over to everybody else in Kfar Chabad, and this should be an answer to everyone who's asking this question, that according to your letter, and everybody knows that, so you went to Eretz Yisrael in the life of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and you had clearly from the Frierdiker Rebbe Hayrois how you should go ahead with Parnasa. And he wrote to you a lot of times that you should stay in Kfar Chabad, and over there you should build it up and live there. And it's known in Chassidus, and in many places in Chassidus, that the idea of Parnasa today is al derech, like the man in the midbar. Okay? That's what the Rebbe is writing. That means to say, it's really boif and nissi. The whole idea of Parnasa today is really boif and nissi, the Rebbe writes. Because why? So the Rebbe explains. Because al piseichel, koshin mezanesa shaladam. You don't really know where your Parnasa comes from. And especially in these times. B'meila, therefore, it's not only b'if and nisi, it's only that certain circumstances cause you not to see, galus causes you not to be able to see properly. So therefore, the galus causes you to think that other places you might get more. But if he told you to go there, go there. Then he goes into this ideas, even a chutzlah in Eretz Yisrael becomes harder, because Eretz Yisrael is more halamas v'steidim, although it says there's more brachas, but it's more halamas v'steidim to get to those brachas. Okay. Therefore, stay put where you are, and don't do anything, not what the Frierdiker Rebbe says. Now, the Frierdiker gave him brachas. He sees parnas in another way, but how do I get those brachas? Right? It's like Bashar. So he said, one of the most important ways to get a bracha, the last paragraph, this is the most important. What's the most important way to get a bracha? What's Keili in life? Achdus. Keili is Achdus. Why is Keili Achdus? Anybody? Why is Keili Achdus? Keili means you're connected. Achdus is connection. He brings down Mahur Bekam Bekaimis in Chassidus, in the Sifrei Musar. It's also understand in logic that Achdus is the way how a person gets brachas from Hashem. So the Eibush is Bashert, but yet he wants Achdus. I want to give a mashal to this. Let me stop for a second for a mashal. What does it mean? The Eibush says it's Bashert. He's giving us all the brachas. So the Lechem min Hashemayim was Bashert and they needed a recognition. The Lechem min Haaretz is also Bashert, but yet he wants a Keili. What's this Keili that Eibishter wants? Achdus, Keili. And if he gave it, why doesn't it come? So there's a nice way of phrasing it like this. The Eibishter gave the Bashert on Yom Kippur to Yom Kippur Yid. Yom Kippur, a Yid stands in Hishtadlus. I'm going to put it in these words. In life, can you give me an example in life where a person decides they're going to do something, 100% they're going to do it, but yet they don't do it, and they're not a liar, and they're not tricking anybody. They're not tricking themselves. They're genuine. They're honest. They really want to do it, and they're gonna. But the next day they don't do it, and they're not a liar. To give you an example, A person wants to go on a trip. They decide it's a good trip for the family, for themselves. They want to do it. Next day it's raining. They can't go. It's bad weather. There's what you want, and then there's the weather outside of you. I can't give it, or I want to give someone a gift, and the guy runs away. I can't just give it if you run away. Come back here, I'll give it to you. The Eibishter gives us gifts. There's Yom Kippur. There's Asheret from birth. He gives a lot of gifts. But if it's raining, if it's bad weather, he can't give it. He's just asking you, put on the weather channel. Change the weather. Keili is changing the weather. I'm not asking you to do anything extraordinary. Just come back here. Yom Kippur, you were standing in front of me. You said hello to me. You thanked me. You got to know me. Monday morning, you ran away. Come back here, I'll give it to you. Keili is coming back. It's not changing. It's not anything. It's not b'chol mayedecha. It's not great. It's a recognition. Where does that play out? It plays out in Hishtadlus. It plays out in... Why Hishtadlus? It plays out where a person feels they're part of what the Eibishter's plan. That's the key point. That's the idea of Keili. So let's see weiter.
You're focusing on the Shama. I'm saying the
Uh-huh.
idea of Hishtadlus is when you focus on the Shama.
In other words, the idea of Hishtadlus is that your guf. Why don't I like someone? Because they said something to me. When do I like someone? When I'm able to overcome it and see that we have more. I'm overcoming. Overcoming means there's no gaps between me and you. That is a demonstration that I'm connected to. Why am I over? I'm connected to something more.
And that's basically tapping.
And that means Keili. That means that I'm now Keili.
So why do you say Keili as in maybe
Keili,
getting a job as in Keili?
You said it's to change.
it's how you get the job. There's a student.
The Keili isn't doing the thing.
A person, we talk, Sheishas Yom Tov. A person's supposed to work for a living, right? So I got a job, that's my Keili. It's also how I go ahead with my job. Do I make a kvisit matoiro? Do I stop for mincha? For men, it's mincha. How do I interact in my job? When it comes to nisyonos of dress codes in the job. When it comes to interactions that are inappropriate within the job setting. When it comes to transactions that are questionable. How do I feel inside of me while I'm doing the job? The job is a guf. How do I make that guf feel part of who I am? The job is just a matter. It's not a life. The life I put into the job is what Keili really means. In other words, Keili's not a cup. Keili is how I make myself alive. Right? So there's two things we talk. We talk about the mitzvahs, and then really more than that, it's in the Anhaga Yemim. So really all the examples given in Chassidus is Shabbos, Masa Matan Be'emuna, Kvi Sitan Ba'Torah, which is probably more for men, but you could understand for Nashim, it could be in other areas of where job can somehow bring to questionable moments, right? Same concept. So it's in the attitude. That's why I give the example of the chassid. It's not. There's nothing wrong. There it's.
If someone who's believing like this will live very, very like Bracha.
What do you mean?
Saving up money, let's say, is a very not.
Why? That's fine. That's very normal. No, that's not what we said. That was in the midbar, that you're supposed to empty your bank account. We didn't say that's how it's supposed to be today. No. No, that's not.
I'm going to get a cheaper esrog because.
There's two nikudas. Oh, so that's something else. That's because. I know.
The same question as before.
There's certain, for example, Shabbos. A person spends on Shabbos, it's brought down in Chazal, that Shabbos is a different cheshbon. Oh, so it's brought down in Chazal. Person gives Meiser, it's brought down in Chazal. That's not part of the cheshbon. Excuse me, right? Person's going to say, oh, I'm going to buy myself I just got chasna money, and I'm going to go on a vacation and spend all the money. I'm like the money in the midbar. I spend it all, and that's it. That's a silly person. That's not what David is saying. For Shabbos, when you spend on Shabbos, you spend on Shabbos. So, that doesn't mean guests,
So you're responsible, but your money you use for good things.
You're supposed to save. It's part of Teva to save. That's not a stira. The real areas where you see the stira is in an, I like to say like this. This person who's a big maimin, I like to ask him a question. When it comes to moments in the job, when it comes to moments that are negaya to you, how do you react over there? If you're really such a maimin, over there also you should have a clear, when someone, you understand what I'm saying? When it comes to, what examples can I give? When it comes to when it comes to a transaction, yeah, that's questionable. I can give an example in money, yeah. Are you so? Of course not. What do you mean? This is not. Oh, I want to make an extra $1 over there. And then when it comes to Shabbos, I'm going to spend extra money on my steak. Then you're just a hypocrite. Taste a cup. If the Shabbos, you want to buy extra steak on Shabbos because yeah, it's Shabbos. And then when it comes in the job, when it comes to the transaction, it's questionable. You also do it. I know you're not real. You're not, because if you would be real, you would be so pashut not to do that transaction. That's questionable.
If you don't do the transaction, if
the house, that's fine.
You do things like, I don't know, I'll go fly to a family simcha because like why should I budget every night?
There's no mitzvah to fly at the family simcha. Doesn't say in the Torah that's part of that. Again, that's your personal decision. That's not part of bitachon. Part of bitachon is not, I like to spend and then say it's bitachon. I like to, splurge and then say it's not bitachon. If you want to Shabbos, if you want to help someone out, that's your choice to help someone out. Spending on yourself and blaming it on bitachon sounds a little bit funny.
Okay, so not on yourself, on a mitzvah.
Mitzvah is a different story. Mitzvah is a different story. That's a different story. If you choose, that's a different story. That's a different story. It's a mitzvah. That's a different story. If you choose that, that's a different story. But I like to know how the person spends their own life too. It's a different story.
So it's more of an attitude.
It's more of an attitude. It's more of an attitude. I don't want to use the word personality. I use the word attitude. Personality makes it only for certain people. It's an attitude that every single person can develop. Personality means certain people have that way. A kamtzin can have it, and also a stingy person and a person who spends can both develop this attitude, and can both not have this attitude. It has nothing to do with stingy versus spending. It has everything to do with the mind of how I look at myself. There are rich people who don't, it has nothing to do. It has everything to do with the mind. That's why it's called das. That's why it's called a mindset. It's how I look at it. If I say, hey, Shabbos is something that Hishtadlus set aside, and that's how I see myself, so fine, that's an attitude, that's an approach. If he can tell himself, I'm not going to the Tzemach Tzedek's house because I'm choishish other people, and that's why he doesn't go there. You understand where that comes from? That comes from an Iber Chacham.
It's a mindset, but not necessarily only for the right one. It's all have that. You can have a really rich person who's so stingy, but you can have a poor person who's not so stingy, but who won't be stingy in anything, not just stingy.
Stingy is a personality.
Yes.
Spending is a personality. The Rambam writes different kinds of personalities, right? Getting upset is a personality. Kas is a personality. Someone who gives in is a personality. Achdus will be harder for a person who gets upset quicker than for a person who gives in quicker. But achdus is an attitude that every person can develop. So it's not dependent on personality. It's dependent on it might be harder, but it's not dependent on personality. Keili means every guf is a keili. It's how you develop your mind is how really the keili doesn't by itself tell you how to feel. How you tell it to feel is how it's going to feel. So that's why it takes time. It's a development that a person has to develop, but it's not. So let's see this letter over here. So what does he say? So he says, what's one of the so now we're a guf and we want to get that bracha stam shachos. So what does he say? No, the first thing is achdus, and he continues, and he says another point he wants to bring out is like this. There are many tzinoidos. We find this lashon a lot of times. You know where the lashon tzinor comes from? So Chassidus says like this. Chassidus says that bashert is compared to a pool. Bracha is malashon bricha. A pool. There's a pool of water. There's Eibishter set aside a pool of water for every single person. A certain amount of goodies. Bani chayim mezayim. In this pool of water. Now you have tzinoidos where you're mamshich that pool into the person. So there could be a blockage in the tzinoidus. A tzaddik is a plumber, if you want to use that lashon. He plunges it, and allows the amshachas to come down. Tefillah is molmata. We're pulling it down. The tzaddik is standing by the pool. He just pushes it. But the tzaddik, it's tricky. The word bracha could mean both. When you find the word bracha by a rebbe, it could mean either a haftacha, a promise, or a wish in English. I wish. A promise means it's for sure going to happen. He's pushing it down. He's standing by the pool and he's pushing it down. And a tefillah means, I hope it's going to happen. You're davening, it should happen. You're standing down there and you're pulling it from down. It's stuck. So you have to work hard. So it could mean both. And you'll see I brought a letter where the Rebbe writes about how a person asks a question from the Rebbe and he says, how come you're not promising me like the Frierdiker Rebbe? So he wrote, the Frierdiker Rebbe, great tzaddik, this is the first year. For each tzaddik, a tzaddik can be maftiach, he's standing by the pool, they can push it down, but I'm giving you only a tefillah. So the tzinoidus that we have over here, so writes the Rebbe, the Frierdiker Rebbe gave us certain tzinoidus, how to get those brachas. When he told you to live in Kvar Chabad, that was a tzinor. That was the pipe of where the bracha is going to come down from. So he said, if you're going to try to look for new pipes, sometimes they'll work, sometimes they don't. Why don't you stick to the pipes the Frierdiker Rebbe gave you? So first Nikud he wrote is Achdus, because there was a problem of Achdus then in Kvar Chabad. And the second Nikud is the Hayrois of the Rabbeim. His Hayrois are essential. So he goes weiter. So the Nasi Hadar showed you certain tzinoidus, and he says, because the next page, when you look at your own tzinoidus, your own pipes, sometimes you come to it and sometimes not. That's point number 2. So first point was Achdus. The second point was if the Frierdiker Rebbe told you, that is the tziner. That is how it will come down. Third point he says, in order for the tzinoidus that should be able to bring down the hashpa, the stuff from the pool should come down, we have to hold on to the hayrois and drachim that he showed us. And he is the memutza machaber from all the hashpais. So this is already a nechsidus that not only is it a drachis, but the Rebbe Bechlal is the one that connects us to our hashpais. And what's the point that he wants to bring down? The most important point, he says, is the achdus. In the end of the letter and at this point. Amurim mikolonal, the inyan of achdus is key to any hashpah. Sholem, he brings on different examples. Aleph, Beis, Gimel. Aleph is achdus, Beis is bracha, Gimel is gaiva, which comes to dalus, which is the same idea of kli versus the opposite of kli. The opposite of kli is gaiva, which brings to dalus. The bracha achdus brings the bracha. Bracha is the brachas we want. Achdus, Keili. So he gives a different, Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Daled, different remozim that showed us. Number 3. Okay, number 3 is another point. Number 4, he brings Amigei Eretz Yisrael. And then, and number 5, he says the most important point in this whole thing is again Achdus. So what do you see from this letter? This letter, the reason why I brought it down, is number 1, when it comes to the idea of a nasi, the nasi is not only pushing it down, the nasi is giving us ways, tzinoidus. Now the lashon tzinoidus is more of a word that fits within the framework of what's happening. There's brachas. The Eibusher sets aside a certain amount. And then there are tzinoidus, there are certain pipes that allow that amount to come to us. And when we actually hold on to you are that, then the pipes actually reach you and you get what is bashert for you. What do I want to bring out from here? Let me summarize what we learned until now so we can go to the last point. Started off with a question. Is, what does it mean that it's bashert, but it doesn't happen? We started off Saifim Tzaddik, on your handout you have that Saifim Tzaddik and Saifim Bracha, right? Tzaddik we found, Tzaddik can be Shoyver Darkei HaTeva, and a Tzaddik can also be Mamshich the things that should happen. Point number 1 is simply understood as to create new channels. That means new tzinoidus that I never had. Point number 2 is to make the things that should have happen. That's the point of a Tzaddik. Example for point number 1, Sada. Example for point number 2 is Nashan Ephraim. Now, we ask the question, what does it mean that Eibusher makes it bashert and it doesn't happen? We ask the same question in point number 2, L'gabi davening, in Kippur and every day. What did we answer? In a nutshell, what's the answer to this thing? This is an overview. We're going to see it more in the next. The answer is the Eibishter set it aside on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's al derech. Example I have that I think illustrates this is al derech. A person gave. I'm ready, giving it all to you. In Hishtadlus, there's a noisin and there's a makabel. In every interaction, there's I already gave you, but now you have to just come to the table. Keili means coming to the table. Weather change. Keili means attitude. I gave it all to you. I like to use the word. On Yom Kippur, everybody had a Hishtadlus. So you're a Yom Kippur Yid. So the Eibishter gave Yom Kippur Hamshachas to Yom Kippur Yid. And he's asking you on every day, bring yourself to a moment, to an appreciation similar to the Yom Kippur moment. And then the brachas that are there come. I signed the deal, but you ran away. So mitzad the noisin is all there. Then there are times the Eibishter never gave us. That we're going to see how that works. Chizkiyahu Melech was on a deathbed, and he davened to the Eibishter. You have other cases. We'll see. Sada was a case. That is a case where Tzayat Tzadik and Tzayos can also affect. That we'll see later how that works. But the first area of really where brachas is in the things we do have. And this applies in all areas. Even in the area of when you say make a Keili for the areas that are meant for you, what that really means is demonstrate your area or where you're misgaber on the chol, where you show that you're connected, where you bring yourself to the table. It's hard to give examples of Keili, because the examples I have in attitude was a story. The examples I have was in work, where you have an attitude of work, not only the work itself. Examples you have, maybe the army, a dress code, or however else it applies. Another example that I saw a sikh where Deborah writes, let's see, brings down one of the letters. Ein klisharis mikachin elam alein. They go in the Beis Hamikdash. So a person had to give a pound of soilus, a pound of wheat. He has to give to the Beis Hamikdash. It says in Gemara, only if it's a full pound does it become kaddish. What does that mean? Only the person. So the Rebbe explains this in Avodah in a person's life. A person has kishrayos. A person has different talents. A person says, "Hey, I'm so talented. I already helped out someone. A nice person. So I did one favor a day. Other person doesn't even know I did two favors. The other person didn't even do one favor. I'm good." Says the Eibishter, did you fill up your Keili? Did you do what you can do? Or are you being yotzei? So here is, again, I'm not substance. Substance, I did so many nice things. But I'm asking you to do what you can do. I'm not asking you to look at others and compare and say, I'm better still and I did more and therefore I'm okay. So here is a personal kind of cheshbon where the person is tasked to look at themselves and say, hey, did you fill up your Keili? Did you fill up your thing that you can do? Then Mekachin. Then the Eibishter is Mekadesh, and then the Eibishter adds. So it's a personal thing. Keili is you can't look at someone else and you can't judge it. It's a personal question a person asks. And everybody has different areas where they can feel that, that pitch, where it's difficult. That's why it's nothing to do with personality. It's not. It has to do with attitude. Because this person is going to be hard over here. This person is going to be hard over here. And that goes into the conversation we had a while ago in the sense of jobs of a person. If this person has a different area where they are going to work in, it doesn't make them less of a Keili than the other person. Whether you're doing whatever you do, choil, kodesh, or whatever it may be, it's how you do it. Keili is all about how you do it. You can be a rav of a city, kodesh, but you're not a Keili. There's a story that's brought down. The kids of these in times of the Bracha used to give brachas to someone. And certain brachas meant you for sure would go out of the army, like when they needed to go out of the army for the Russian army, they were drafted. And certain brachas, it meant that I hope you'll go out of the army. Same idea. Bracha and haftacha and bracha. So the Chassidim knew, if he said this, I don't remember the exact words. If he said this language, it means you're for sure going to get out. If he said this language, it means hopefully you'll get out. Sometimes yes, sometimes not. So there was one person who was, before he was engaged, and the Kala wanted to know what kind of bracha he's going to get. So he went to get a bracha, and he got the bracha, and they weren't going to get married until he finds out that the army is a dangerous thing, the Russian army. So he got the bracha of Avtocha. So he came back to his shver, and he says, I want to make the wedding now. Why should I wait? I have Avtocha anyway. Right? They went to the Rav of the city. The Rav of the city was a Chassidus Rav. When he heard the taina of the chassan, he said, he wants to get married now, he has Avtocha. So he smiled. He's like, naive. Smile. So the Chassid of the city fired him. He said, that doesn't show that you really are part of it. They felt you could be a gracer of, you can act, but you don't really. We didn't see that you're connected. The smile, the naive, you're not. You don't. They didn't want. They don't want him anymore. So it's an attitude behind what you do. Maybe that's a little bit of an extreme example, but there's an attitude behind what you do. It's nothing to do with the job you have. That's the. I'm madgish this on purpose. If you realize, I'm madgish this on purpose. I'm stressing this point of attitude versus substance on purpose. I'm not going into too many details, but I'm stressing it on purpose because it's shallow and it's incorrect. That's where the vision comes from. You know what period of Levavis comes from? When we start judging people by jobs. When we start judging people by things. I can be the biggest Rav, and I have nothing to, the Misnagdim did that. That was how they looked at Klal Yisrael. And when right? I don't want to go there. Right? That's where the problems come from. So me saying everybody has to have a certain thing to do, rather than stressing how they should do, what they're meant to do, it's counterproductive. I'm not putting everybody in a straitjacket. You have to see what you're meant to do. It's how you do what you're meant. Right? We've talked about that at different times. Yeah. Okay. So now that's why the Rebbe brings down the Gia the Mon. Now I want to show you a little bit of the Sikha. I want to show you a few minutes left to show you the little Sikha. If you look in Ha'ara 18, the first paper that you have over here, you'll see everything I just spoke about. You'll see he quotes V'yadaita, right? I circled it. This Sikha is a Sikha that is highlighting a lot of what the Maimer talks about. Ha'ara 18, you'll see he quotes V'yadaita Tov Resh Nun Zayin. That's the Maimer that we're learning. It's on the first page, 175 in the bottom. This Sikha goes into B'Shalach. It's a Sikha about Mon. He goes into how Mon is like Shabbos. Shabbos is also Bitachon. And he compares the two. So he goes through a whole lengthy discussion of what's Mon. The first Sif Gimel, he asks the two questions. Why do you have to have both of these specifics? Not collecting and not collecting for the next day and not collecting on Shabbos. Then he goes into Sif Dal, the whole discussion of what's Lechem in Hashemayim, Lechem in Aretz. He goes into what we spoke about the other times of how Bitachon. What does it mean Bitachon? That you have that you're supposed to do it, but yet you feel like the Eibishter told you to do it. All the stuff that we had, gift that make it happen. That whole thing, Sif Dalet he talks about. In the Marma Kaimis over here is what we had last time. Then he goes into Sif Hey and he says, really, Lechem in Hashemayim is a preparation for Lechem in Aretz. This is you go through the Sikha, you'll see it. It's in Yiddish. And then the area where he really highlights this is in Sif Vav and Zayin, where he brings out how the Lechem in Hashemayim was really a preparation. And the most important place of Bitachon, most people think Bitachon is when you can't. This idea of attitude, look how he talks about it. Most people think, what's Bitachon? When I have no choice. And I say, I'm minding the Eibishter. He says, Bitachon is when you do the regular job that you do. You're working for a living. You're doing the regular job you do. And over there, you have the right attitude. That's the biggest level of Bitachon. Because over there, you bring it into your regular day job. Regular person, the 9 to 5, he goes to work, they work in the office, secretary, whatever they're doing. And they're looking at their work in the right way. That's the ultimate moment of Bitachon, because they're showing how within the world, they see that the world is a conduit to the Eibishter. The person who's B'Shas HaKanan screams out to the Eibishter, he's asking for the Eibishter to be misgaber on the world. Here, you're in the world. That's real achdus. I mean, there's nothing else besides the Eibishter. Here he's saying the world is a contradiction, but no, you can do better. Come on, you can break it. That's B'Shas HaSakana. The ultimate moment of achdus is specifically the person who's in the world, and they show it. That's Sivlov. You'll see it inside. You'll see it there. It talks about it. And that's why I said it's an attitude. That's attitude. The attitude, the way it expresses itself in that day-to-day function, that's the key thing. We'll finish with that. We'll continue more in more areas how this plays out. That's the introduction.